It's musicians who were out of bands before they made it big. I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Book. If you really think about it, every band that makes it big has played with a lot of people before. Most of those people don't end up having a career in music. It's usually the lucky 3, 4, 5, 6 that are in that band for that particular album, and hopefully they have a winning streak. We start with the Crazy Diamonds, Syd Barrett of Pink Floyd. He was born Roger Keith Syd Barrett, January 6, 1946. He died on July 7, 2006. Barrett was a co-founder of the band Pink Floyd in 1965 and was the original frontman and primary songwriter. Any Syd Barrett Pink Floyd fan would know The Piper at the Gates of Dawn from 1967, which had 4 singles, and A Saucer Full of Secrets the following year. There's a general consensus that Syd's downfall was an and/or thing when it came to substances. Did his addictions bring out mental illness which otherwise might have come out a little later? Even after Syd's death, his sister sort of downplayed his addictions. During the end period of his tenure with the band, he would act erratically on stage and completely wasn't reliable. But as society is, Syd Barrett became very, very famous and mysterious, in spite of being kicked out of Pink Floyd on April 1968. An interesting fact that a lot of diehards know that Barrett visited the band while they were recording their 1975 album, Wish You Were Here. He just showed up at Abbey Road unannounced and watched the band doing their final mix of Shine On, You Crazy Diamond, a song about him. Barrett was 29 at the time and was barely recognizable. He was overweight, had shaved his head and his eyebrows, and at first, the band really didn't recognize him. And there was Syd Barrett in Abbey Road with his old band, and he was brushing his teeth. Vocalist and bassist for Floyd, Roger Waters, asked Syd Barrett what he thought of the song, and he says, "It sounds a bit old." In 1996, Barrett was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of Pink Floyd. He died of pancreatic cancer in 2006. John Rutsey and the band Rush. The group was formed in 1968 with guitarist Alex Lifeson and bassist Jeff Jones, who would soon be replaced by Geddy Lee. Rutsey was only on one Rush album, their debut album from 1974. But due to health problems and musical differences, he was replaced by Neil Peart. Rutsey died of a heart attack and issues of diabetes on May 11, 2008. And interestingly, it was John Rutsey's brother Bill who came up with the name Rush for the band when they were practicing in their basement in mid-1968. Pete Best. No list of people who left bands before they made it big would be complete without probably one of the biggest obvious choices, Pete Best and the Beatles. He was born Randolph Peter Best and has sometimes been referred as the fifth Beatle. Pete's mother, Mona Best, had a venue called the Casbah Coffee Shop. It was in the cellar of their family home in Liverpool. The Beatles at the time were known as the Quarrymen, and they played some of their first gigs at that club. Pete joined them August of 1960. But unfortunately for Pete, Ringo Starr would, of course, replace him in August of 1962. It was the group's manager, Brian Epstein, who fired Best at the request of John Lennon, Paul McCartney, and George Harrison. That was following the band's first recording session. Many years later, Best received a major payout for his work with the Beatles after the release of their 1995 compilation of their earlier recordings, Anthology 1, where Pete played the drums on a number of the album tracks. Pete Best later started his own band, the Pete Best Four, and started other bands over the years. He has said he has come to terms with it. Jim Masdea of the band Boston. According to Jim, he'd been with the band long before that huge debut album came out in August of 1976. According to Jim, in many reports, he was replaced in that band by Sib Hashian after he'd recorded the whole thing. The end result only featured one song from Jim on that debut album, Rock and Roll Band. We'll have Jim come on in just a second to tell you in his own words what happened. But we should point out he did come back to record half of the third stage album, and he also toured with the band.
What was your relationship with Sib? I mean, considering he got all the glory, it seems, for that, and you'd gone back so much and actually, I mean, I don't think a lot of people disagree. I'd heard that he basically had done it. I'm not saying that's the truth, but the story is that he had gotten in there and done what you had done. He just copied you. I'm not sure if that's true. You tell me, what's the story there?
Not a problem. Again, just think about a doctoral student. He goes to college for 7 years. works your ass off, right? Works, develops, comes up with his final thesis. Then the clerk who takes his hand notes and just inputs them into the computer and prints out the thesis, they decide to give him the doctorate, even though he just copied the work of the other guy. So for me, it's kind of the same way. I worked for 7 years. Sib was in there a couple of months before the album came out. And so, as we all know, nothing great comes easy. It takes long, hard work. I'm the work in, not Sid. Again, not Sid. He was a great father, great family man. He's a good guy, but he was never in my basement. He never worked on writing that music. He simply is the first cover drummer. He covered my intellectual property. No different if you buy some sheet music from some famous guy and he wrote off the drum parts, and then you sit and you play that song and you play those parts. Did you write those parts? Of course not. You just read them, a composer wrote them, and you executed, you performed them. Sib did a good job of re-performing my parts.
Anthony Phillips of the band Genesis. We'll have Anthony come on in just a second to tell you what happened to him. He was the original guitarist for the band Genesis from 1967 to 1970. He had problems with stage fright, and he also wanted to pursue other instruments and other sounds in general. In January 1967, Anthony Phillips and Mike Rutherford of the band invited another Charterhouse pupil, Tony Banks, then Peter Gabriel and drummer Chris Stewart. Their first album was From Genesis to Revelation, but the band really found their sound on their second, Trespass, or as they say in England, Trespass. It included one of the diehard Genesis fans' favorites, The Knife. For the next album, Nursery Crime, Steve Hackett was the main guitarist. Now here's Anthony Phillips in his own words talking about what happened with him in Genesis.
Philip Hoyos says, what was it like having Steve Hackett replace you?
Well, he didn't directly. There was somebody else in between. I forget his name now, but Mick Bernard, I think. He was very good, too. He was very good. Steve didn't join till I left in August. Steve didn't join, I don't think, until February. Mick was there in between. So it didn't happen straight away. So I'd already got used to somebody else playing the parts. What was it like? Yeah, a bit strange, obviously, seeing anybody else doing it, really. But they were both very good. So I didn't I didn't find myself watching thinking, oh, dear. These guys are so much better than me. And I didn't think the other either. I didn't think... I didn't think, oh, no. I mean, no, it was fine. It was fine. I mean, the guitar was, there wasn't a lot of solos, is the truth of it. So Steve was actually going through and playing quite a lot of parts, which would have been similar to what I'd played before, actually, to start with, before they did all the new material. So wasn't that different, is the truth of it. I think later on it became more obvious what a great, particularly electric guitarist he was.
Hope you enjoy that list. What other members would you include in a video about members who exited bands, whether they left on their own or were fired, before that group became famous? Make sure you comment on our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos. I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Book. Take care.